Hi, I just wanted to give us an introduction to realism, looking at, again, my laptop, which has the PowerPoints that you can get on Canvas. Realism is an important style that develops in the middle of the 19th century. The painters who are realists reject everything that is ideal about the styles that came before, particularly Romanticism and Neoclassicism. I've got two examples on the PowerPoint, Jericho and David, opposite sides of the painting spectrum, but boy, they're both nevertheless giving us ideal figures. Realism is going to stress ordinary people, lower class people, working people. It is going to also stress visual reality, or the painters might say actuality, claiming to paint what they actually see in the world around them. But don't be fooled, because there is generally a political agenda that goes along with this. The leader of the movement, Courbet, ends up having to flee the country because he damages a Napoleonic monument and doesn't want to pay for it, so he runs out. Daumier, the person we're going to look at briefly in a sec, is going to spend 6 months in prison because of a political cartoon that he creates, making fun of the French king. These artists who were realists often had something to say. They had a message. And that message is often to elevate the ordinary. And that could include people in particular, the working class or the needy. Realism is, you're going to have to imagine, going to be heavily influenced by photography. The first photograph, roughly 1826, 27. By 1839, we have the daguerreotype, which is a working method of creating photographic images. So painters now are not just competing with photography, but they're also learning from it and being influenced by photography at the same time. I would like us to take a look at Daumier, and in particular at his third class carriage, which is 2730 in our textbook. That is a reasonably important picture for us also, because it's located in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Daumier is a true blue realist who fights often against injustice, particularly for lower class people, for the folks who are on the bottom rungs of society. In his third class carriage, he is also condemning class divisions that have been created by the Industrial Revolution. His people here are most likely individuals who've come to the city as a result of industrialization in hopes of finding a better life. And perhaps they made more money, but what they've lost, according to Daumier, is incredible. The fresh air, the freedom to be in the country and to have the life of someone on the farm, and to have the life that is much more egalitarian than one would find in the city, where social classes are separated. And this is promoted, this is pushed forward by the Industrial Revolution. Okay, the third class carriage, which is in the Met, is a picture then that documents the accommodations for the poor, the folks who can't afford the second class or the first class. We're talking here economy seats, folks, like we would get when we're flying, only perhaps not even as good as that. What we discover in looking at the people in the third class carriage is that they have drifted off into their own personal space. Exactly what you and I often do in elevators, by the way, when it gets crowded. We look away, we create a safe zone around ourselves, and that protects us from the crowd that exists to our sides. The figures are very sketchy, quickly drawn, and I know it's a painting, but it's also really a drawing. Daumier was primarily a political cartoonist. He did paintings, he did sculpture, but his rapid brushmark carries over from his cartooning as he's creating outlines of his figures. When you go to the Met and you look at this, you're also going to see that it is gridded in preparation to be copied. It is typical of Daumier's work and his interest in perhaps exposing some of the negative qualities of the Industrial Revolution, particularly the way in which it tends to further divide us by class. You will also find a series of other images by Daumier in the following PowerPoint, and I simply ask you which class these folks come from. I think it won't be hard to find the first-class carriage in there. There's also a second-class carriage and another third-class carriage as well. In addition, there's a black and white, which was a newspaper cartoon, and the original text that went with it was between a butcher and a drunk. What this references is the pitfalls of public transportation, and you can see that the lady prefers to lean towards the butcher rather than the drunk. Daumier, an important character of the 19th century, an important realist, and an individual who, as a realist, promoted the rights and protections of the lower class members of society and fought for what we would count as justice.